Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm going to talk about this book I just finished reading, Hunt for the Skinwalker by George Knapp, who I'm very familiar with, and Colm Kelleher, PhD. Yeah, you know me. Uh, this book is from originally come out back in the early 2000s, and it's about a ranch in Utah and all kinds of what they call high strangeness. Weird shit goes on over there. I'm going to get into all that. Probably go off on a few related tangents about it and related items. So George Knapp, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's a journalist and not one of these 2020 post 2020 journalist types that are uh, not really journalists. He's like an old school journalist. Guess he's still in Vegas and been a reporter for a station in Vegas since I don't know how far back, 80s, I guess, maybe even before that. Uh, I first became familiar with George Knapp via the great radio show Coast to Coast AM. I still believe he's still a host on that occasionally. I first became familiar with Coast to Coast AM. Uh, I'm not even sure when that was, if I was in college or if I was in high school at the time. I'm not even sure when Coast to Coast started. I think it started sometime in the 80s with, God, now I'm drawing a blank. I'm getting old here, guys. I can't remember the original host of Coast to Coast. I could see his face, but drawing a blank on his name here. Uh, the current host, I think, is still that George Norrie guy who is, in my estimation, and based on a lot of the comments I read from uh, people making comments of various, mostly YouTube videos related to Coast, probably aren't as big a fans of Mr. Norrie, and I sure am not. But the original host of Coast to Coast was Hall of Fame type of guy. Now it's driving me nuts because I could totally picture his name, his face, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anyways, I not sure if I started listening in the late '80s or the early '90s, but definitely remember uh, driving home on a Friday or Saturday night, which would actually been a early Saturday or Sunday morning, flipping around radio channels and coming across Coast to Coast and with talking about the topics that are, I think these days more and more people are taking these things seriously or at least willing to consider them. Back in those days, it was, you know, people thought you were a nut job if you even considered any of these things, alien abduction, UFO sightings, cryptids, which are cryptozoology, legendary uh, animals, which I think some of them are just species that are not quite yet, fully discovered by the scientific community. Because, back in the day, way back in the day, uh, gorillas were not a known species, and uh, I guess there were legends about these animals in the jungles of Africa, but it took a while for them to become a recognized species of animal by the scientific community. But cryptids are things like Bigfoot, otherwise known as Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, Mothman, all these type of things. Uh, Coast to Coast also talk about pyramids around the world and had different guests on there with their theories about how these ancient uh, megaliths were built. Was there an alien connection or just an ancient civilization? I first heard of Graham Hancock via Coast to Coast. Heard him on there forget when this was, and was very intrigued about the stuff he was talking about. So I went out and got his book, The Sign and the Seal, and that's all about the Ark of the Covenant, and talking about that he thinks it's some type of technology, ancient technology that was handed down, and he was in this book talking about its different powers and whatnot, and he was searching for it, trying to find out where it is currently located. So he's kind of doing the Indiana Jones deal there. And then from there, I read Fingerprints of the Gods. But Coast to Coast also had topics like ghosts and all this type of stuff. And over the years, listened to it off and on because it's late at night. So during the week, I usually didn't listen to it because back when I first started listening to it, I had school the next day, and after that would have work. So usually I would listen to it on the weekends, and or a couple periods in life in between job type of situation, able to stay up late and fall asleep listening to all the crazy different topics. There's also a good way to find out about books about these different topics. Back in the day, prior to the internet, being exposed to different books and what those topics are wasn't as easily available. Just go on Amazon, look up a book, and it gives you all kinds of suggestions about related books, similar authors, etc. But that's how I first heard about George Knapp, and it's still driving me nuts, guys. I still haven't had the original host of Coast to Coast pop into my head, and if any of you are familiar with that show, you're probably screaming the name out right now. George Knapp, George Norrie. I even know if there was a guy, Ian Pundit or something like that, was an occasional host. I'm remembering all the host name except for the guy who started it all. The Hall of Famer, the original. I mean, I remember how he had came out of retirement after he had originally retired, and then he had a different show on Sirius XM satellite radio at one point. Midnight in the Desert or something like this, Dark Matter. It drives me nuts, guys. But so this video is supposed to be me talking about this, not me trying to remember the name of the guy who started Coast to Coast AM. So Coast to Coast AM, he actually had a late night talk show. He was talking about political stuff, and one night he had a guest or somebody called in or something that they started talking about. I think it was aliens and Art Bell. Finally, man, I don't think I was gonna remember that. It was gonna drive me nuts. So Art Bell, yeah, and then he had such a positive reaction from the crowd when he had that discussion about aliens that he kind of switched gears for the show, and the rest is history. But let's get back to the topic of Hunt for the Skinwalker. So this ranch in Utah, this book is about a couple, a family bought the ranch and moved there back in the early to mid 90s, and they were only there for a couple years. They got the hell out of there because the crazy stuff that's going on. So this ranch is like a vortex for all kinds of weird happenings. UFO sightings, sightings of strange beasts. Over the years there's been dogman type stuff, sightings of Bigfoot, all kinds of creatures. There's been sightings of, if you remember Predator, that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, how the predator can camouflage himself, so he's basically almost invisible. There was a sighting of something of doing that type of technology or whatever. And there's different theories about what's going on there. Military experiments. Uh, I think it might be like a portal to another universe, another dimension, somewhere on the other side of our universe. All kinds of stuff. But so this family eventually got out of there and they sold it. But when they had originally bought it, they bought it from a couple that uh, they had in the contract to buy the house. They had to promise not to do any digging, which is strange. And the house, when they bought it, there were locks on all the doors. Not only the doors going in and out of the house, but also I think they said there's even locks on the internal doors, and maybe even the cabinets were locked up. And in addition to that, in the front, right outside both the front and the back door, was a heavy chain connected to a steel post that was driven into the ground. That seemed like obviously the previous owners must have had guard dogs set up there. So odd stuff going on. And then this family also experienced like poltergeist activity. They'd come home from the market and have a bunch of groceries and stick all the groceries on the counter, take it stuff out of the bag and put it all in the fridge and in the cabinets. Walk away for 10 minutes, come back in the kitchen. All the groceries they just put away were back in the bag. And this stuff like this happened. Tools would go missing. Cooking utensils would go missing and they turn up a day or two later in the freezer or in the refrigerator. Weird stuff like this was happening. So I guess after a couple years of this, well, the other stuff they had going on was it's a ranch, so they had cattle there, and they had mutilations going on to some of the animals and all kinds of crazy stuff. They had these orbs, which I guess technically could qualify as a UFO or whatever the new term is these days, UAP. You know, I don't know why you couldn't just keep to unidentified flying object. Now they change it to unidentified aerial phenomenon. But this ranch, and in the book they talk about there's a few other locations around the U.S. that has the same type of stuff going on. But they eventually got had enough of it, and they ended up selling it, and they sold it to this wealthy individual by the name, I think his first name's Robert, and last name Bigelow, and he funds, I think it's NIDS, NIDS, National Institute of Discovery Science, something like this. He brought a team of scientists down there trying to do some scientific research and experiments and studies, trying to figure out if they could collect data on all these strange phenomenon and maybe come up with some type of hypothesis as to what's going on there. And so this book documents all that stuff and documents how they tried to study it in a scientific manner, and they weren't able to really collect large amounts of data because these phenomena that happen, they say that it seems as though there's a intelligent entity that causes all these weird things to be happening because when the people are on the ranch, it seems to be able to read their minds, know what they're thinking. It's able to even do mind control to like make someone experience different emotions for no reason, whether it's fear or, different emotions. It's able to control people's state of mind, apparently. Or it also able to know what people were going to do. Or at least it's also able to hear what they're saying and then do shit in response to that. So one time, this couple uh, the wife said to the husband something to the effect of, if anything were to happen to the bulls, because I guess mostly the mutilations would happen to the cattle, but nothing had happened yet to the bull. And they had these bulls that were, you know, expensive. And I don't know, they had a half a dozen of them or something. And she said to her husband, I don't know what we would do if anything happened to them because, this is their livelihood. And so they went to another part of the ranch and came back, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later, and all the bulls were gone. And they started freaking out. And turned out these bulls somehow got placed into some, I don't know if it was like a trailer or something that was locked. And they were all in there, crammed in there, tight as could be. And they all seemed to be like in some type of trance. And, no explanation how that happened. So weird stuff like that was going on all the time. But in the end, I guess that wealthy individual ended up selling it because they, I guess, kind of wound the investigation down because as time went on, fewer and fewer of these weird phenomena were occurring. And so they ended up selling it. But I think I did a video a while back talking about the current TV show that's on right now about Skinwalker Ranch. So the current owner of it is another wealthy individual, and he's hired a team of scientists to do some more experiments. And I think that's on Discovery Channel. I was watching that. I think they got 3 seasons under their belt there. There's a bunch of episodes I got on the DVR that I need to check out. I haven't been keeping up to date on that. But if you want to read about some weird stuff going on, give this book a spin. Hunt for the Skinwalker. And you learn a little bit about the history of that ranch because it's located on or near Native American Indian reservation. And I guess there's a history of two different tribes. Is it the Utes and the Navajo? They were at war with each other. These Native American tribes weren't all a bunch of peace-loving people before the evil white man arrived on this continent. A lot of them were at war with each other and, would do a bunch of heinous things to each other. So when the white man showed up, some of them decided to do some of those heinous things to the white man. And of course, the white man did heinous things to, not all the white men, some of the white man did heinous things to some of the natives. But anyways, that's a different topic for a different day. But one of the tribes put a curse on the other, and that's what this Skinwalker thing is. This Skinwalker, and I guess they have these things, and a lot of the indigenous folks have it, and different names for it. But basically, it's a evil witch doctor, right? And it's a shapeshifter. They have the ability to take whatever form they want, and different types of powers and whatnot. So, some people think that might be what's going on there. Seems to me that that could possibly explain some of the stuff that happens there, but not all. But I think they also got a new book out. The two folks that wrote this book, I think that came out last year, in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe. I think it's called Skinwalkers in the CIA or something to do with the government. Because I know that when this group was doing their studies, they ended up getting some type of involvement from the U.S. government. Once the U.S. government gets involved in something, forget about it. They're going to cover shit up and pull all kinds of shenanigans these days, right? But like I said, if you want to read about some crazy shit going on over there, or that was going on over there back in the 90s, Hunt for the Skinwalker, check it out. And If you've already read this book, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about it, and let me know what you think. First of all, if you buy into these things, or if you think it's all a bunch of bullshit. And if you do think this people are telling the truth, if you got any ideas what you think might be causing the high strangeness going on over there, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. All right, everyone. I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. And I'll see you guys on the next one.